He handed me a dog bowl and told me to be useful. My son-in-law wanted me to serve his pets like a kennel boy in the estate I designed with my own hands. He thought I was a broken, bankrupt old man, a piece of furniture that had outlasted its warranty. He was about to learn that you don't humiliate the man who knows exactly where every bean, bolt, and secret in the house is buried. If you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know to realize I'm not just whispering into the dark. My name is Robert Sterling, and I need to tell you how my sanctuary became my prison and how I turned the keys on my captors. The pain in my lower back was a living thing. It wasn't just a soreness. It was a heavy, dull creature. It had wrapped its claws around my spine 3 months ago and refused to let go. I sat in my study. The leather of my old high-back armchair creaked as I tried to shift my weight. Just 12 weeks prior, I had been on an operating table. A team of surgeons fused my vertebrae. They were trying to fix the damage of 40 years in the construction business. I was the man who had built half the skyline of this city. I knew how to calculate the load limit of steel and concrete to the decimal point. But now, in the dim light of a Tuesday afternoon, I was just a man who couldn't put on his own socks without gasping for air. I was weak, and they knew it. My study was my sanctuary, or at least it was supposed to be. It smelled of cedar, old blueprints, and the faint, lingering aroma of the pipe tobacco I hadn't smoked in a decade. It was the only room in the house where I still felt like the owner. The rest of the house, my house, the estate I had designed with my own hands, had been slowly, methodically colonized. My son, David, and his wife, Jessica, had moved in 2 years ago. To help, they said. David had lost his job at the regional bank, a victim of downsizing, he claimed. Jessica liked nice things. She didn't like working for them. She was a woman of sharp angles and even sharper ambition, a person who looked at the world as a series of messes. I had welcomed them. I was lonely after my wife Martha passed. I thought having family close would be good for the foundation of my life. I thought it would reinforce the walls. I was wrong. A foundation with a hidden crack doesn't get stronger with weight. It crumbles. The phone on my mahogany desk buzzed. It vibrated against the wood like an angry hornet. The screen lit up with a photo, Jessica. I stared at it. They were downstairs. I could hear them moving around in the foyer. The thud of heavy luggage. The click of heels on the marble. Why was she calling me from 50 feet away? I picked it up. My hand trembled slightly from the effort of reaching across the desk. "Hello, Robert." Jessica's voice was sharp, fast. It lacked the softness one uses with family. It was the voice of a site manager speaking to an incompetent laborer. "We are heading to New York. Right now." "David is loading the car." My heart skipped a beat. "New York?" I asked, my voice raspy from disuse. "You didn't mention a trip. Is everything all right?" "It came up suddenly," she said, her tone dismissive. "Fashion Week events. David needs to network if he's ever going to get back into finance. We'll be gone for a week." "A week?" I repeated. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I looked at my cane leaning against the desk. A week alone, a week of struggling to get down the stairs to the kitchen, a week of silence. "We need you to come help with the pets," she said. It wasn't our request. It was an order. The sitter canceled on us last minute. "You need to feed Brutus and Bella twice a day. Let them into the yard, and make sure the back gate is locked." "Oh, and Brutus needs his ear medicine drops twice a day." I closed my eyes. Brutus and Bella were Great Danes. They were massive, energetic, and completely untrained because Jessica refused to discipline them. They jumped. They pulled. Dealing with them required strength I currently did not have. "Jessica," I said, trying to keep my dignity intact, "I can't. You know I'm struggling through pain in my study right now. The doctor said no lifting, no sudden movements. I can barely walk to the bathroom attached to this room." "It's just feeding a dog, Robert," she snapped. "Don't be so dramatic. You're always playing the victim lately. It's pathetic." Pathetic. The word landed like a slap in the face. "I am not playing," I said, my voice hardening. "I am recovering. I am still weak." There was a silence on the line. It wasn't a thoughtful silence. It was a cold, sucking silence, the kind that happens before a structure gives way. Fine, she spat. The venom in her voice hit me like a physical blow. If you're so useless, if you can't lift a finger to help the people who take care of you, then don't expect us to be there for you. She took a breath. Stay out of our way. Stay out forever. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone warm in my hand. Stay out forever. I heard the front door slam, shaking the floorboards. I heard the roar of the engine, the luxury SUV I had paid for. I heard the tires crunch aggressively on the gravel driveway I laid with my own hands 30 years ago. Then, silence. The house was empty. The pain in my back throbbed, a rhythmic reminder of my frailty. But for the first time in weeks, another feeling rose up to meet it. It was a cold, gray feeling. It was the feeling I used to get when I walked onto a job site and saw a wall that was leaning, a beam that was rotting from the inside. It was the realization that the structural integrity of my family had failed. They had left me alone. They had abandoned me with impossible tasks. They had told me to stay out of my own life. I looked at the photo of David on my desk. He was 5 years old in the picture, holding a plastic hammer, helping me fix the deck. He looked up at me with such adoration. "Where did you go, son?" I whispered to the empty room. I didn't cry. Tears are for grief. This wasn't grief. This was an inspection, and I was about to find out just how deep the rot went. The first challenge was physical. I needed water. My throat was parched from the medication I took for the pain. I gripped my cane. "Stand up," I told myself. "You are not a victim. You are a builder." I pushed. The pain was a white-hot rod, inserted into my spine. Blinding and absolute. I gasped, sweat instantly beading on my forehead. But I stood. I breathed through it. In, out. I shuffled to the door of the study. The hallway stretched out before me, long and shadowed. The stairs were the enemy. 14 steps down to the main floor. Curved, polished wood. Slippery socks. I took them one by one. It took me 15 minutes. Sweat dripped into my eyes. My legs shook with the effort of stabilizing my weight. But I made it to the foyer. The kitchen was a disaster zone. It was a testament to their negligence. Dirty dishes were piled high in the sink, encrusted with days-old food. A pizza box sat open on the granite counter, the crust stale and hard. The smell of sour milk and neglect hung in the air. This was how they treated my home when I wasn't looking.
I found the dog food bag.
It was a 50-pound bag, ripped open on the floor. The dogs were in the mudroom, barking frantically. I limped over and opened the door. They rushed me. I braced myself against the wall, prepared to fall. "Down," I commanded. I dug deep to find my old job site voice, the voice that could cut through the noise of jackhammers. Surprisingly, they stopped. They looked at me, heads cocked. They knew authority when they heard it. I wasn't the weak old man they ignored. I was the guy who fed them. I managed to get food into their bowls, spilling some on the floor. I let them out into the yard. Then I saw it, on the kitchen counter. Buried under a pile of junk mail and fashion magazines was a thick envelope. It was from the bank, my bank, but it had been opened. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking, not from age, but from a sudden spike of adrenaline. It was a statement for a home equity line of credit. I frowned. I didn't have a home equity line of credit. I owned this house outright. I had paid off the mortgage 15 years ago. It was my legacy, the asset that was supposed to secure the family's future. I looked at the balance. $450,000 withdrawn. My knees gave out. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, gasping. $450,000, taken out against my house in a single lump sum. Who signed for this? I flipped the page. There was a copy of the signature. Robert J. Sterling. It was my name, but it wasn't my signature. The loop on the wire was too wide. The slant was wrong. It was a forgery, a clumsy one, but good enough for a banker who didn't look too closely, or perhaps a banker who had been charmed by a desperate daughter-in-law. I looked at the date, 3 weeks ago, the day of my surgery. They had done it while I was under anesthesia. They had used my vulnerability, my unconsciousness, to rob me. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just Jessica being mean. This was a crime. This was grand larceny. And my son was part of it. He had to be. He was the only other person who had access to my social security number and the deed. I needed to know more. I needed to see the full blueprint of this disaster. I forced myself up. I needed to get to David's office, the room that used to be the guest bedroom downstairs. I walked down the hall. The door was locked. I checked the top of the door frame. Nothing. I checked under the rug. Nothing. I went to the garage. It took me 20 minutes to get there and back, agonizing step by agonizing step. I found a flathead screwdriver in my old toolbox. I jammed it into the lock of the office door. I wasn't being careful anymore. This was my house. I twisted it hard, putting my weight into it. The cheap lock popped with a satisfying snap. I walked in. The room was cold. The air conditioner was blast. David's computer was on the desk, the monitor humming in sleep mode. I sat down. I touched the mouse. The screen woke up. Password required. I tried password. No. I tried Jessica. No. I tried money. No. I sat back, thinking. David was simple. He wasn't a mastermind. He was a follower. He was sentimental in a way that made him weak. What would he use? I typed in Mom, access denied. I tried her full name, Martha, access granted. The desktop appeared. My heart ached. He used his dead mother's name as the key to the machine he used to rob his father. I opened his email, and there it was, the whole ugly schematic. Emails to a realtor in New York, looking for a luxury condo in Tribeca. Cash offer, need quick closing, funds available, immediately. And then I saw the one that made my blood freeze. It was an email to a facility called Shady Pines. Inquiry about involuntary admission for dementia patient. Budget wing. How fast can you process a transfer? I felt cold all over. They weren't just stealing the equity. They were planning to dump me. They were going to New York to buy their new life with my money. Come back. Declare me incompetent using a forged doctor's note. Put me in a state-run facility. And sell the house. Stay out forever, she had said. She wasn't telling me to leave the room. She was telling me the plan. I sat there for a long time. The sun went down. The room grew dark. I had a choice. I could call the police right now. I could have them arrested at their hotel in New York. But that felt incomplete. If I called the police now, they would claim it was a misunderstanding. They would say I gave them permission. They would say I was confused, senile. It would be my word against theirs. And they had the energy of youth and the conviction of liars on their side. No, I needed more than a report. I needed a trap. I picked up my phone. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Frank? I said. Robert. Frank's voice was deep, gravelly. Frank was the district attorney for the county, a man I had fished with for 20 years, a man who knew the law better than anyone. Everything okay? I heard you had surgery. I did, I said. Frank, I need you to come over tonight and bring your old kit. The one you used for surveillance when you were a detective. What's going on, Bob? I have a structural failure, I said grimly, and I need to document the collapse. If you're still hooked with us, hit like before we continue. Frank arrived the next morning. He brought a man with him. A short, wiry guy with losses and a laptop bag. This is Tom Vance, Frank said. He's the best private investigator in the state, and he's a wizard with digital forensics. Tom shook my hand gently. Mr. Sterling, Frank told me everything. We're going to nail them. Frank looked at the pile of papers I had printed out. They forged your signature, Frank said, looking at the loan document under the kitchen light. That's 20 years in prison right there. Bank fraud. Wire fraud. I know, I said. Why aren't we calling the sheriff? Because they are coming back on Sunday, I said. They are coming back to finish the job. They think I'm weak. They think I'm stupid. I looked Frank in the eye. I want them to believe that until the very last second. You want a confession, Frank guessed. I want justice, I corrected. And I want to give my son one last chance to be a man. I need to know if he's the architect of this, or just the bricklayer. We spent the next 4 days turning the house into a fortress of evidence. On Wednesday, the internet went out. I checked the router. It had been reset remotely. Jessica must have realized I might try to check the accounts. They cut the line, Frank said. No, I said. They just changed the password. I couldn't hack it back. I was an engineer, not a coder. but I knew the physical world. I went to the basement, found the main service line, and spliced a hardline connection directly into Tom's laptop, bypassing the Wi-Fi router entirely. It took me an hour of painful bending, sweat pouring down my back. But we got back online. They thought they blinded me. They just made me look harder. By Thursday, the food in the house ran out. I couldn't drive. I couldn't walk to the delivery apps were all linked to David's card, and I didn't want to alert them by using it. I can go get food, Tom offered. No, I said. If the neighbors see you coming and going, they might text David. He calls Mrs. Gable next door sometimes to check on the house. I had to raid the pantry. I found cans of soup from 3 years ago. I ate cold beans and stale crackers for 2 days. It was a small indignity, but it fueled my anger. Every cold spoonful was a reminder of their neglect. On Friday, the landline rang. I hesitated. Who would call the landline? I picked it up. Mr. Sterling. It was a woman's voice. Soft, nervous. Yes? This is Sarah Jenkins. From the bank. I shouldn't be calling you. I knew Sarah. She had been my teller for 15 years. What is it, Sarah? Your son, he sent a request today. She whispered. He wants to drill your safety deposit box on Monday morning. He sent a power of attorney document. My blood ran cold. The safety deposit box. It held Martha's jewelry, her grandmother's ring, the letters she wrote me during the war. It's a forgery, Sarah, I said. Do not let him open that box. I can't stop him if the paperwork looks real, she said, her voice shaking. But the system might be down on Monday morning. I can delay him. Thank you, Sarah, I said. You're a guardian angel. I hung up. They weren't just stealing money. They were stealing memories. Saturday morning, a car pulled into the driveway. It wasn't them. It was a sleek, silver sedan. A woman in a red blazer stepped out. She carried a clipboard. I watched from the window. She walked up to the front door and knocked. I opened it. Hi, she chirped. I'm Linda from Premier Realty. I'm here for the open house walkthrough. I stared at her. The what? The walkthrough, she said, checking her watch. Jessica said the house would be empty today. She said the current resident would be moved out by noon. My blood ran cold. Moved out by noon. I am the current resident, I said, and I am not moved out. The woman looked confused. Oh, well, this is awkward. Jessica told me the owner was incapacitated. She signed the listing agreement electronically on Friday. Did she? I asked. Yes. She said we need to list it fast to pay for the nursing care. Linda looked at me with pity. Are you Robert? Honey, do you know where you are? She thought I was the dementia patient. She thought I was lost in my own doorway. I know exactly where I am, Linda, I said, my voice sharp. I am standing in the house I built, and you are trespassing on a crime scene. Her eyes went wide. Go, I said, and tell Jessica you met the owner. Tell her he's still here. Linda turned and practically ran to her car. Saturday night, a storm rolled in. The lights flickered and died. The house was plunged into darkness. The backup generator didn't kick on. They didn't service it, I realized. I was alone in the dark. I needed to keep the computers running. I needed to charge my phone. I had to go to the basement. The stairs were steep and narrow. I had a flashlight in my mouth. My cane in one hand. I went down, one step at a time. It took an eternity. I reached the generator. It was out of gas. I had to find the gas can. I had to lift it 2 gallons of fuel and pour it into the tank. I screamed with the effort. My back muscles seized. But I did it. I pulled the cord. The generator roared to life. The lights came back on. I sat on the concrete floor, weeping from the pain. But I was proud. I was still useful. If you're still caught up in this story, tap like before we move on. Sunday morning, I was in the kitchen, exhausted, when I heard a key turn in the back door. I froze. They weren't supposed to be back yet. But it wasn't them. A woman stepped in. She wore a heavy coat and carried a basket. It was Elena, the housekeeper I had hired a year ago, the one Jessica had fired last month for stealing silverware. A lie I never believed. Mr. Sterling? She whispered. Elena, I asked. What are you doing here? I heard, she said, setting the basket down. The neighborhood is talking about the realtor, about the dogs barking all night. She opened the basket. It was full of food, homemade stew, bread. I brought you this, she said, and I brought you this. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. I found this in the trash before I left, she said. I didn't know what it meant then, but now I took the paper. It was a receipt from a pharmacy in the next town over for a powerful sedative prescribed by a Dr. Aris Thorne. Who is Dr. Thorne? I asked. He's not your doctor, Elena said. He's Jessica's friend from college. I saw them talking once. My hands shook. They were drugging me. That's why I was so weak. It wasn't the surgery. It was poison. Thank you, Elena, I said. You just gave us the smoking gun. Sunday evening arrived. They were flying back that evening. Frank came over with two men I didn't know. They wore suits and had earpieces. These are Agents Miller and Ross, Frank said. State Police, Financial Crimes Division. You called the heavy hitters, I said. You said you wanted to bring down the house. Frank smiled. I brought the wrecking ball. The agents set up cameras in the living room. They hid microphones in the flower arrangements. We need a confession, Agent Miller said. We have the paper trail, but a verbal admission of intent makes it airtight. We need them to say they know the power of attorney is forged, or that they intend to defraud you. I'll get it, I said. I went upstairs to shower. I shaved. I put on my best suit, charcoal gray, tailored. It was a little loose on me now. I had lost weight from the stress. But I looked sharp. I looked like the CEO I used to be. I went downstairs. I sat in my armchair in the living room. I placed my cane across my lap. I waited. 6:00 p.m. Frank was in the basement, wearing headphones, monitoring the audio aids. The agents were parked a block away in an unmarked van. I sat in the living room. I lit a fire in the fireplace, even though it wasn't that cold.
I wanted the atmosphere. I wanted them to see the fire.
The SUV pulled in at 6:15 p.m. I heard the doors slam. I heard Jessica laughing. It was a bright, shrill sound. I can't believe we pulled it off, she was saying as they walked up the path. That condo is going to be amazing. I'm worried about Dad, David's voice. He sounded anxious. What if the social worker didn't come? Then we drive him there ourselves tonight, Jessica said. Stop being such a baby, David. We're rich. The key turned in the lock. The door opened. They walked in, carrying bags from designer stores. They brought the smell of cold air and expensive perfume with them. They stopped when they saw me. I wasn't cowering in my room. I wasn't in my pajamas. I was sitting in the center of the room, looking straight at them. The lamp beside me cast a long shadow across the floor. Dad? David dropped his bags. What are you doing here? I live here, I said. Jessica's face twisted. Why aren't you packed? Did the lady from the home call you? Several people called me, I said calmly. The bank called? Sarah called. The realtor called. Linda called. Jessica went pale. She took a step back. Linda came here? She did, I said. She seemed to think I was incompetent. She seemed to think this house was for sale. It is, Jessica snapped, recovering her aggression. She marched into the room. Look, Robert, we didn't want to do it this way, but you leave us no choice. You can't take care of yourself. Look at you. You're a mess. We're doing this for your own good. My own good, I repeated. Is that why you forged my signature on a $450,000 loan? The silence that followed was absolute. David looked like he had been shot. You know about that, David whispered. I know everything, David, I said. I know about the loan. I know about the Cayman account. I know about Dr. Thorne and the sedatives. Jessica froze. Her eyes darted around the room. She looked feral, a trapped animal. You're lying, she hissed. You're a crazy old man. No one will believe you. I'm giving you a chance, David, I said, ignoring her. I looked straight at my son. Right now. This is it. The bridge is crumbling, son. You have to jump to the safe side. Don't listen to him, David, Jessica screamed. He's bluffing. Tell me the truth, David, I said softly. Did you know she was poisoning me? Or did she lie to you about that too? David looked at me, tears welling in his eyes. He looked at Jessica. She told me it was just pain medication, David choked out. She said it was to help you sleep. Shut up. Jessica lunged at him, slapping his face. Shut your mouth, you idiot. David recoiled, holding his cheek. He looked at his wife, really looked at her, for the first time in years. You lied to me, David whispered. You said Dad gave permission. He's senile, Jessica yelled. He doesn't know what he's doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said. I raised my cane and tapped it 3 times on the floor. The kitchen door opened. Frank stepped out. He was holding a file. The front door opened. The 2 state police agents walked in. Jessica screamed. It was a high, thin sound of pure terror. Jessica Vane, Frank said, his voice filling the room. Also known as Jessica Miller, you are under arrest for grand larceny, forgery, wire fraud, and attempted murder. No, she backed away, knocking over a vase. This is a setup. That old man is crazy. He's abusing me. We have the video, ma'am, one of the officers said, unhooking his handcuffs, and we have the receipts from Dr. Thorne. They moved in. Jessica fought. She kicked and scratched. It took both officers to restrain her. She was cursing me, cursing David, cursing the world. David stood there, watching his wife be handcuffed. He didn't move. He looked broken. David Miller, Frank said gently. You're under arrest too. Conspiracy to commit fraud. David nodded slowly. He didn't fight. He held out his hands. I'm sorry, Dad, he said. He was weeping openly now. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I stood up. It hurt, but I walked over to him. I know, I said. But you let it happen. You watched her treat me like a dog, and you did nothing. That's the crime, David. The money I can replace. The trust. That's gone. I love you, Dad, he sobbed as they cuffed him. I love you too, son, I said, my voice cracking. That's why I'm stopping you before you destroy your soul completely. They led them out. I watched from the window. The red and blue lights flashed against the trees. The neighbors were on their porches, watching. Jessica was shoved into the back of a cruiser. David was put in another. They drove away. The house was silent. The fire crackled in the grate. Frank walked up behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. It's done, Robert, is it? I asked as they're frozen. We'll get most of the money back. The house is safe. The house is just wood and stone, Frank, I said. My family is gone. You have family, Frank said. You have friends. You have Elena. You have Sarah. You have yourself. I looked at the empty room. The bags from New York were still on the floor, spilling expensive clothes onto the rug. I walked over and kicked one of the bags aside. I'm going to need a new gate latch, I said. I can fix that, Frank said. No, I said, straightening my back. I am the engineer. I'll fix it. 6 months later, the winter had been hard, but spring was here. The garden was blooming. I sat on the back deck, watching Brutus and Bella chase a tennis ball. They were happy. They didn't know their master was in a federal prison. Jessica had taken a plea deal, 8 years. It turns out I wasn't her first victim, but I was the first one to fight back. David got 3 years. It's minimum security. I visited him every Sunday. We talked through the glass. He looked better, actually. He looked like a man who had been relieved of a heavy burden. He was taking carpentry classes in Nissen. He said he wanted to build things when he got out. Maybe we could build something together. Maybe. I wasn't weak anymore. I walked 3 miles a day. I'd hired Elena full-time. She was a godsend. I picked up my phone. No frantic calls. No demands. I looked at the house. It had some cracks. The paint was peeling in spots. But the foundation was solid. I had almost lost it. I had almost let them convince me that I was finished. But they made a mistake. They pushed on a load-bearing wall, and they forgot that those walls are designed to carry the weight of the world. Come help with the pets, she had said. I smiled. Watching the dogs run, I did help them. I saved them from people who didn't deserve them. And in the process, I saved myself. The sun set over the trees, casting a golden light on the world I had rebuilt. It wasn't the same world as before. It was quieter. It was lonelier, but it was mine. And this time, I was going to make sure the gate stayed locked against the wolves. Thanks for walking this journey with us. Tap like and let us feel you here. Tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven Dave?